It started as a joke. You know, one of those ideas that sounds brilliant when you're 3 drinks in and sitting on a couch that smells like Leo's old dog. A fake profile. A few harmless messages. Just enough to remind Sarah that she was still interesting to someone. That was the plan. Leo called it social reanimation. Marcus called it a bad idea. But Marcus always said that, so we just ignored him. I'm Kalen, and this is Kalen After Midnight. It was a Tuesday night, the kind of night where nothing happens, yet everything feels permanent. We were huddled around a coffee table littered with empty beer cans and a half-eaten pizza that had gone cold an hour ago. Sarah wasn't there. That was the problem. 6 months ago, Sarah would have been the one leading the conversation, her laugh cutting through the room like a sharp blade. But since Mark left, she had become a ghost in her own life. When she did show up, she sat in the corner of the sofa, her thumbs scrolling through a phone that never buzzed with the news she wanted. She was fine, she told us. But fine is a dangerous word. It's the word people use when they're drowning, but they don't want to get the carpet wet. She's disappearing, Leo said, staring at his laptop. He wasn't looking at work. He was looking at a blank dating profile. She's grieving, Leo, Chloe said, though she looked just as worried. Mark told her she was too much. That sticks to a person. It's like a psychological slap. So we give her a counter-argument, Leo said, his eyes lighting up with that specific brand of Leo energy that usually ended in a police report or a very expensive bill. If one man told her that she's too much, we find another to tell her that she is just right. A man who doesn't exist. A man who can't disappoint her. Marcus groaned, burying his face in his hands. This is the plot of a bad rom-com from 2004. It ends with a drink being thrown in someone's face. It ends, Leo countered, with Sarah remembering that she's a catch. We do it for 2 weeks, 3 tops. Just a little dopamine hit to get her back on her feet. A gateway drug to real confidence. We spent the next 4 hours building a human being. It was chilling how easy it was. We gave him a name. Julian. It sounded stable. Like a man who owned a blazer and who knew how to cook an artichoke. We gave him a profession. Architect. Architects are perfect, Chloe argued, taking the keyboard. They're artistic, but they have jobs. They understand structure. Sarah loves structure. He needs a dog, Leo insisted. He spent 20 minutes scrolling through stock photos until he found a golden retriever sitting in front of a fireplace. Look at that dog. That dog says, I have a 401k and I'll never ghost you. You're allergic to dogs, Leo, I reminded him. Julian isn't. Julian is a god among men. By 2 a.m., Julian was real. He lived in Chicago, close enough to be reachable, far enough to explain why they couldn't meet for coffee tomorrow. He liked mid-century modern furniture, indie folk music, and meaningful silences. We sent the first message to Sarah on Wednesday morning. The message read, Hey, I know this is random, but I saw your profile and your comment about the Art Institute. I've always thought that wing was the most underrated part of the city. I'm Julian, by the way. We sat in the group chat, staring at our screens, waiting. 10 minutes, 20. Then we saw the notification. Sarah is typing. She's biting, Leo messaged the group. Nobody moved. Cleo, get me a fact about the Art Institute, fast. For the first week, it was a game. We were in hive mode. Julian was the smartest, most charming man in the world because he had 4 people editing his scripts. If Sarah mentioned a book, we spent 30 minutes on Wikipedia so Julian could have an informed opinion on it. If she was having a bad day, Julian knew exactly when to send a photo of the golden retriever, who we named Buster, to make her smile. And it worked. That was the intoxicating part. On Friday, we met Sarah for drinks. For the first time in months, she hadn't worn her oversized, sad hoodie. She wore a dress. She'd done her hair. She kept glancing at her phone, and every time it buzzed, a secret small smile played at the corners of her mouth. You look great, Sarah, Chloe said, leaning in. I feel okay, Sarah said, her voice lighter than it had been since the summer. I've been talking to this guy, Julian. He's an architect in Chicago. He's actually nice. He listens, like really listens. Across the table, Leo caught my eye. He gave a tiny, triumphant nod. We were heroes. We were the ones who had pulled her out of the gray. But as I watched Sarah, really watched her, I felt the first prickle of dread. She wasn't just smiling at a phone. She was falling for a ghost. She was trusting a shadow we had cast on the wall. He sent me this photo of his dog today, Sarah said, turning her phone around to show us the stock photo. Isn't Buster the cutest? Adorable, Leo said, his voice cracking just a little. Perchance, does he have a lot of photos of that dog? A few, Sarah said, tucking her phone away. He's traveling for a project right now, so we're just texting. But he's so easy to talk to. It's weird. It's like he knows exactly what to say before I even know that I need to hear it. The table went quiet for a heartbeat too long. Of course he knew what to say. We were her best friends. We knew her triggers, her favorite jokes, and the specific ways she felt about the ending of The Great Gatsby. We weren't just playing a character. We were playing her perfect match by using her own life as a cheat sheet. That night, the group chat was different. The fun had started to sour. Marcus texted, "This is getting heavy. She's talking about him like he's her soulmate." Leo texted back, "It's fine. It's working. Look at her tonight. She was glowing." Chloe responded, "She's glowing because she thinks a man loves her, Leo. What happens when that man vanishes?" Leo responded, "He won't vanish. We'll just fade him out. You know, work gets busy. He moves to London. It'll be a beautiful memory." But Sarah didn't want a memory. She wanted Julian. By the second month, the Project Julian group chat had become a second job. What started as a fun writing exercise had turned into a high-stakes surveillance operation. We were no longer just sending her good morning texts. We were managing a complex web of architectural terminology, fake Chicago weather reports, and fictional family drama. Leo created a spreadsheet. That was when we knew he had crossed a line. He tracked everything. Julian's sister's name, which by the way was Claire. his favorite childhood memory, which was a summer in Maine, and his specific stance on brutalist architecture. Yeah, he hated it because Sarah did. We're getting too good at this, Marcus said one evening, looking at the spreadsheet. I feel like I'm helping write a CIA deep cover legend, not a dating profile. It's not a lie if it's for her own good, Leo muttered, though he looked tired. He had dark circles under his eyes from staying up until 1 a.m. architecting with Sarah. Then the message came through that changed the temperature of the room. Leo didn't send a screenshot this time. He just turned his phone around and laid it on the table. Everyone leaned in. Sarah texted, Julian, can I tell you something? Something I don't tell my friends. Julian texted back, always, you know you can tell me anything. Sarah texted back, my ex didn't just leave me. He told me I was exhausting. He said being around me was like a full-time job he was quitting. I've spent the last 6 months in therapy trying to learn how to be less, how to be quieter, smaller, easier to deal with. I don't tell the guys because I don't want them to look at me and see a project that needs fixing. But with you, Julian, I feel like I can just be my too much self. And you don't seem to mind at all. The silence in the room was physical. It felt like the air had been sucked out of the apartment. Chloe was the first to look away. She walked towards the window, her arms crossed tight. We're monsters, she whispered. We aren't monsters, Leo said, but his voice lacked its usual bravado. We're the only ones who know how great she is. We're just reflecting it back to her. No, Leo, Marcus said, his voice hard. We're lying to her about her own sanity. She thinks she's found a safe space. And the safe space is just us, 3 blocks away drinking beer and pretending to be a guy named Julian. We have to kill him, I said. Tonight, Julian has to go. We can't just kill him, Leo shouted. If he dies in a car crash or something, she'll be devastated. It'll be Mark all over again, but worse because he was perfect. We have to phase him out. The slow fade. The slow fade became our new mission. Over the next week, Julian became a flake. He started taking hours to reply. His messages became shorter. No more thoughtful questions about her day. No more photos of Buster. We thought it would make her move on. We thought she'd get bored or annoyed. We forgot that Sarah was a fighter. Instead of pulling away, she doubled down. She started texting Julian more, asking him if he was okay, offering to drive to Chicago to check on him. She became the very thing she was afraid of being, intense. But she was doing it because she cared. The guilt was a living thing now, sitting on our chests. Every time we saw her in person, the tension was unbearable. One night at the burger place, the breaking point arrived. Sarah was unusually quiet. She wasn't checking her phone. She was just watching us. Specifically, she was watching Leo. Leo was nervous. Now, when Leo is nervous, he overcompensates and tries to sound sophisticated. He's the kind of guy who thinks using big words makes him look like he's in control. It's a fascinating place, Leo said, gesturing to the restaurant's new renovation. The way they kept the original brick, it adds a certain gravitas, perchance. I winced. Nobody says perchance. Sarah's eyes flickered. A tiny, sharp spark of realization. She didn't say anything. She just reached for her phone and typed something. 5 seconds later, Leo's phone buzzed in his pocket. He didn't look at it. He was too busy talking about spatial awareness. You should check that, Leo, Sarah said softly. Might be important. It's just work, Leo said, his face turning a shade of red that suggested his blood pressure was skyrocketing. Check it, she repeated. Leo lifted his phone out of his pocket. His thumb swiped the screen. He froze. The table went silent. I peered over his shoulder. The text from Sarah to Julian read, Hey, I'm with my friends right now. One of them just said, perchance. Isn't that a funny word? The trap had been set, and Leo, he walked right into it with his own vocabulary. Sarah didn't explode. She didn't throw her drink. She just leaned back in her chair and looked at us. It wasn't the look of a victim. It was the look of a scientist observing a particularly stupid species of hamster. So, she said, her voice terrifyingly calm, which one of you is the dog? The walk back to Sarah's apartment for taco night felt like the march to the gallows. We had tried to play it off at the restaurant. Oh, haha, what a coincidence. But Sarah wasn't buying it. She had invited us over with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. When we got there, she didn't put on music. She didn't offer us chips. She just stood in the center of her kitchen and looked at Leo. Hallway, now, she said. We sat on her sofa, 3 grown adults huddled together like children, waiting for their parents to finish an argument. We could hear the muffled sound of Leo's voice. He was talking fast, his explanation voice, the one he used when he was trying to get out of a speeding ticket. Then the dam broke. Okay, I can't do this anymore. Leo's voice echoed through the door. I'm Julian. I made the profile. I thought it would help. I saw you shrinking, Sarah. I saw you becoming this ghost of a person because that prick Mark told you that you were too much. And I wanted you to see that you weren't. I wanted you to feel beautiful again. And then it got out of hand. And I didn't know how to kill him without breaking your heart. So I just kept being him. I'm so sorry. He was panting. We could hear him gasping for air. Then Sarah's voice. Yeah, I know. You know? Leo, you're an idiot. You've been Julian for weeks. I figured it out at the burger place, but I suspected it way before that. Julian started liking the exact same obscure 70s folk band that I mentioned to you in passing. Julian started using phrases that Chloe uses. Julian knew about my therapy. Who else would know that? The door opened. They walked back in. Julian looked like he had been through a car wash. Sarah looked clear and powerful. You guys thought I was broken? She said, looking at all of us. You thought I was so fragile that if a guy left me, I'd never be able to stand up again unless a fake architect held my hand? We just wanted to help, Sarah, Chloe whispered. Help? You didn't need help. You turned my healing into a group project. You took the most vulnerable things that I said because I finally felt safe, and you turned them into screenshots for a group chat. She took a breath. That's the part that hurts, not the fake guy. The fact that my friends didn't trust me to be sad. You were so uncomfortable with my grief that you tried to skip to the end of it. What can we do? Marcus asked. Sarah looked around her apartment. I'm moving. I've already signed a lease. I need a fresh start where the walls don't remind me of a guy who doesn't exist. She looked at Leo. You're helping. You're the architect of this mess, so you're the architect of the move. 4th floor, no elevator, lots of books. Leo nodded, his head hanging low. I'll be there at 6 a.m. 7, Sarah corrected. I'm not a morning person. Julian was, but I'm not. She walked to the door and opened it. The joke was over. The lie was dead. And as we walked out, I realized that she was right. She wasn't too much. We were just too small to handle the reality of her. The sun hadn't even cleared the horizon when Leo's beat-up sedan pulled up to the curb of Sarah's old apartment. It was 6:58 a.m. He sat in the driver's seat, staring at the steering wheel, gripped by a level of sobriety that usually only comes from a heavy court summons. He had spent the last 48 hours rehearsing apologies, each one sounding more pathetic than the last. Chloe and Marcus arrived a few minutes later, clutching cardboard trays of industrial-strength coffee. No one spoke. The air was thick with the kind of collective shame that makes even the sound of a car door closing feel like an accusation. Sarah met them at the entrance. She wasn't wearing the sad hoodie or the Julian date night dress. She was wearing a faded college t-shirt, biker shorts, and a look of grim determination. She looked like a general surveilling a battlefield she had already won. Rules are simple, she said, her voice crisp in the morning air. No complaining. No perchance. And Leo, you're on the heavy stuff. The dresser, the oak desk, and the 3 crates of vinyl. Everyone else grabbed the kitchen boxes. The move was brutal. 4-hour penance. Sarah's new place was a pre-war walk-up on the north side. The 4th floor she had mentioned was actually more like 4.5, counting the landing. The stairs were narrow, steep, and smelled of lemon floor wax and decades of shared lives. By the 2nd hour, Leo was drenched in sweat. His legs were shaking as he balanced the corner of an antique desk, the one Sarah had bought at a flea market during the height of her fixing things phase. You okay there, architect? Sarah asked, leaning against the banister as she effortlessly carried a box of books past him. I'm fine, Leo wheezed, his face the color of a ripe tomato. Good, because we still have the sofa and the mattress and the vanity with mirrors. As they reached the 4th floor landing for the 10th time, Sarah signaled for the others to head back down. She lingered by the door of the new apartment, watching Leo struggle to set the desk down in the center of the empty living room. The space was beautiful. High ceilings, crown molding, and massive windows that let in a flood of uncurated, honest light. It's a nice building, Leo said, wiping his forehead with his sleeve. The layout is very functional. It's not Julian-approved architecture, if that's what you're wondering, Sarah said, sitting on the edge of the desk. He probably would have found the lack of an elevator inefficient. But I like the struggle. It makes the view from the top feel earned. Leo slumped against the wall, sliding down until he was sitting on the hardwood floor. Sarah, I really am sorry. I know sorry is a small word for a 3-month lie. But I didn't do it because I thought you were weak. I did it because I couldn't stand seeing you believe what Mark said about you. Sarah looked out the window, watching the shadows of the trees dance on the brick of the building across the street. That's the thing, Leo, she said quietly. You didn't want me to believe him, but you also didn't want to deal with me while I did believe him. You wanted fun Sarah back, the one who makes the jokes and hosts the trivia nights and doesn't talk about her therapy sessions. Julian wasn't a gift for me. He was a buffer for you. The honesty of it hit Leo harder than the 4 flights of stairs. He realized she was right. They hadn't been protecting her. They had been protecting their own comfort. They wanted their friend back, but they wanted the version of her that was easy to consume. We were selfish, Leo admitted. We liked the version of you we created because he made us feel like heroes. Exactly, Sarah said. She stood up and walked over to him, extending a hand to help him up. I don't need heroes, Leo. I need friends who can sit in the dark with me without trying to turn the lights on before I'm ready. The rest of the afternoon was a blur of tape, bubble wrap, and the slow transformation of a house into a home. They ordered the expensive pizza, the kind with the truffle oil and the fancy crust that Sarah loved. They sat on the floor amongst the half-unpacked boxes, and for the first time in months, the conversation felt real. There was no group chat scripting, no hidden agendas, just the messy, awkward, beautiful sound of four people trying to figure out how to be honest with each other again. As the sun began to set, casting long golden fingers across the floor, Sarah pulled out her phone. She opened the dating app, navigated to the profile of Julian the architect, and hit delete. "Wait," Leo said, a genuine smile tugging at his lips. "What about Buster? That dog deserves a proper send-off." Sarah laughed, a real sharp laugh that echoed through the empty rooms. "Buster is fine, Leo. He's a stock photo. He's probably living his best life in a brochure for homeowners insurance." She stood up and stretched, looking at her new kingdom. She wasn't fixed. She still had bad days, and she still worried that she might be too much for the next person she met. But as she looked at her friends, sweaty, exhausted, and covered in dust from helping her build a new life, she realized she didn't need a fake architect to tell her that she was interesting. She was Sarah. She was intense. She was emotional. She was exhausting. And she was exactly where she needed to be. "All right," she said, tossing a crumpled napkin at Leo. "Pizza's gone, Leo. You still have the vanity in the car. Move it or lose it." Leo groaned, pushing himself off the floor with a wince. "4th floor, no elevator. I'm going to have nightmares about these stairs for years." "Good," Sarah said, heading towards the kitchen. "That's the point. Every time your legs ache, I want you to remember, perchance next time, you should just send a text as yourself." Leo laughed, grabbed his keys, and headed back down into the cool evening air. He was tired. His back hurt. And he was broke from the pizza bill. But as he descended the stairs, he felt lighter than he had in months. The lie was over. The work had begun. And the view from the 4th floor was indeed spectacular. Thanks for joining me. I'm Kalen, and this was Kalen After Midnight. New stories every Wednesday and Friday at midnight. Enjoy your evening.